Sean shared a part of his life with me, and he gave me so many gifts that I can't even explain. I was working in a natural doctor's office, and the doctor that I worked for was training under him. I met him one day in the office, and I will never forget the look on his face. He was humble. He had that definite Indian demeanor and look, and he had a pride but a humbleness about him at the same time. I had quite an experience one time while he was gone on a 3-day trip. He came back into the doctor's office, and I will never forget his face. He looked at me and he said, "You've had quite an experience. You've totally changed. I'd like to hear about it." And as busy as he was, he sat there and he listened. And this change happened actually in the doctor's office one evening after hours that was so remarkably powerful that I just had no words, but I tried to explain to him what had happened. He proceeded then to tell me, with my body reactions versus what happened to me spiritually, just what happened and how my body processed it, and the fact that I actually went through all 7 stages of change within moments. Usually that kind of thing takes months or years. That was the beginning of a relationship. When he would go in to do acupuncture on patients, I would go in as an aide. I did physical therapy and electrotherapy. I began to feel and see acupuncture points lighting up within my body and in my eyes, and he knew it. After a couple of times he said, "You know exactly where I'm going to put the needles, don't you?" I said, "Yes, sir, I do." And so he offered an apprenticeship at that point in time. So I began to learn from him. He was an amazing man. He took me one time to the Cherokee tribe that he was so involved with, and we had a sweat. I will never ever forget that night or the trip. I also would go up into the mountains deeper where we lived to his home, and he would teach me all kinds of things about nature, about the land, about the history of where we lived, and he always had a lesson. He taught me how to shoot my first bow and arrow there too. One time I brought my youngest son Aaron with me, and we found out that he wasn't feeling good that day, so he sat in the car and he laid down. He was really young at that point in time. He was maybe 5, 4. I think he was about 4. And so I went up to help him fix a fence, and while he laid in the car for a few minutes, and it was a really pretty day. It was cool. It wasn't cold. It was really a nice day. And I noticed, I turned around, I had this funny feeling, and I turned around and I saw my little son starting to walk up toward me through the grass that was about his face height in the field there, and I noticed that his eyes were coming out of his head. I ran down the hill. I dropped everything. I ran down the hill frantically. Even at that distance, I could see his eyes coming out of his head. I was totally horrified at what my son looked like. The lining of his eyes were so bulged out that he could not blink, and they kind of wrapped around his irises. I just didn't know what to do, and I picked him up and ran up to Sean, and so he told me what to do. He told me to, first of all, we were too far away from a hospital to get him help so quickly, so I ran down to the next corner grocery store that was about 5 or 7 miles away through the mountains. So I put him in the car and I held him close, and I tried to calm. I kept calm, and I didn't get panicky. I didn't look panicky. I felt panicky. And he just, laid his head against my side. He never complained. And we got to the store, and I got some Benadryl and threw him back in the car and gave him some Benadryl, actually a triple dose as was directed by Sean, and drove back to the house. And he was all calm, and Sean was calm, and he did some acupuncture on him, and we sat and waited, and Aaron, bless his heart, he said he was such a good kid. He was such a good kid, and we didn't show him a mirror. We just told him that he had a reaction in his eyes, and he was in total trust. And within an hour or so, his eyes started decreasing in size, and I found out that basically he had an allergic reaction to the grass in that area, and the histamine in his eyes between the outer lining and his eyeball had congregated there to the point that it was like a big blow-up balloon, and it was attached around the edge of the iris, and so it didn't cover his eye, his eye opening or anything like that. So it didn't alarm Aaron at the time. I could go on and on and on about him, but another significant thing that he did for me was teach me Tai Chi. And when I opened my schools, my first school, guest, and very honored there. People were excited to see him among a couple of other pretty famous martial artists, and he actually did a demonstration of Tai Chi for us. So that remains special in my heart, and I just wanted to take the time to dedicate these stories about his life, what a great man he was, and more importantly, what an incredible friend he was. I will never forget him as long as I live, and things he taught me and things he gave me are things that could never be replaced or things that could never be explained. This is only the tip of the iceberg, but I hope you enjoyed the stories and a part of my history and a part of his history. And to you, Sean, I want to thank you so much for everything you've given me. I know you're here. I know you're still with us. Even though we can't see you, even though we can't talk to you with our voice, I can still feel you. You're a presence in my life that will never, ever disappear. I love you.